Hey girl, welcome to Finding My Best Self, the podcast where it's totally okay to show up in your leggings and messy bun, because let's be real, that's our uniform here. The only rule is to be unapologetically yourself.
And I'm Mandi, and joining me is Pam, the queen of finding the silver linings. We're here to share laughs, tears, and everything in between. Think of us as your new best friends with some stories to tell and wisdom to share.
From face palms to victories, we're diving into the journey of self-discovery, wellness, and what it means to truly embrace who you are. So whether you're conquering the world or just trying to find your phone in the black hole, purse, we've got you covered.
Because here it's all about encouraging you to lace up those sneakers, or don't, we're not judging, and join us as we explore what it truly means to own your confidence and find your best self.
So pour yourself a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and let's get into it. Hi there, and welcome back to another episode of Finding My Best Self. This week you have Mandi and I together doing one of our duo episodes. And this week we decided we wanted to chat about something that's been coming up a lot lately. We've been talking to some new people that we've been introduced to and just our close friends. And it's a topic that keeps coming up over and over again. So I feel like maybe this is something that's collectively going on in the universe. And it's just everybody's maybe kind of not trying, but everyone is feeling this pull, feeling a shift happening in yourself and in your life. And it can be very scary. It can be very confusing. It can feel like depression and anxiety. So we just wanted to kind of unpack it because it's something that both Mandi and I have talked a lot about over the last several months, that it's something that we've both experienced over the last year or two and are still experiencing today. So we just wanted to share our personal experiences and kind of what that looked like and felt like for us and where it's gotten us to now and kind of where we're going with it forward from here. So I guess Mandi, you can kind of start off with, kind of where you were a year or two ago and when you really started feeling the shift happening in your life.
Yeah, and we've talked about this too, that a lot happened last summer for both of us without either of us really having those conversations at that time, that we really became isolated. And when I say isolated, it's almost like you kind of took yourself away from your social groups or just, engagements with other people, and found ourselves really like digging deep into who we are, what we wanted, and then where to go. And at the time, it was almost depression for me. And I think for Pam also, that it looked, felt, sounded like depression, anxiety, all these heightened emotions. But looking back, it definitely was a growing moment for us, isolation, as far as like we both got it more into like our spiritual realm and just trying to really dig deeper into, why are we here? What's our purpose? What are we trying to focus on? And it's just one of those things that now, like looking back in every aspect of our lives, you kind of go into these moments of what you feel like are these big depressive moments. You always come out on the other side learning something, growing, or just realizing something about yourself that you didn't know before. So like we say, it's almost like when it's time to level up, you get into these moments of isolation, and that's whenever God can really like dig deep, with you and show you what you're supposed to be doing, regardless if that makes sense at the time, which most of the time it doesn't. It just feels really hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know both of us kind of experienced that last summer. And obviously, since then, so much has changed. And so we really just kind of wanted to touch on that because I feel like this happens a lot for people and they don't necessarily understand, these different changes or shifts in our life can be used for the better or for good things.
Yeah. So it's one of those things. And if you're kind of wondering what we're talking about whenever we say you're feeling a shift or you're feeling something different, for us, this felt like the people that I'm hanging around with, it doesn't feel right. The things that I'm saying or doing just don't feel right anymore. the places that I'm going, the music that I'm listening to, all of those things just start to not feel right anymore. And it is a very odd feeling, right? Because you go through your whole life. Like we've talked, Mandy and I talked that we've gone through our whole life of having all of these different friend groups, right? And growing up, and I personally, and Mandy said she did as well, I had several different friend groups that were very, very different in dynamics. And over the years, friends came and went. And I always felt like maybe a little bit of an outsider in all of my friend groups. And I think that's why all of my friend groups changed so much, is because I was always trying to find my place. And with each group of friends that I hung out with, what I didn't know at the time that I can now look back on and say that what I was really doing was more so of like a people pleasing, or just me doing what everybody else was doing because I was just trying to fit in. But it wasn't really because that was authentically me or who I was. And so I think, it was last year, a little bit more like the year before is when I really kind of started to feel it. And then last year was when it really hit home. I started having those feelings of, these things just don't feel right. Like, I don't want to be a drinker. I don't want to be drunk all the time. I don't want to listen to certain types of genres of music. I want to have a closer and better relationship with God. I want to have more of a home life and family life. I want to focus more on myself and what's my purpose in life and where I'm going. And I started having all of those feelings, and they get like really, really intense. And it's hard. And that's, I think, where, like you said, it starts feeling like depression or anxiety, and you kind of start to isolate yourself because you're wanting to pull back, right?
Mm-hmm.
From the people, the places, the things that you were always your whole life doing or seeing or acting all these ways. And you kind of start to pull back because you're like, okay, I don't feel like I want to do those things. But then you start getting the comments,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or the phone calls of, what do you mean you don't want to come hang out? Or why don't you want to do that? Or what's wrong with you? You're
Yeah,
acting
it's that one.
different. Or,
What's wrong with you? Why are you not, acting this way, that way,
yeah,
doing this? Yeah, it's for sure that judgment that also pushes you back into that depression because you're like, well, what is wrong with me? Like, why am I feeling this way? It
right.
is.
Or then you feel guilty, or
Mm-hmm.
then you feel like, oh, well, oh, I should, because, because like you said, I start feeling like, well, what is wrong with me? What, let me just go. I'm just going to go, or I'm just going to go
Mm-hmm.
do, or whatever. And then you go, and then you feel
And
like crap again
yeah, you feel off the whole time.
because
Just something's not right.
something's not right. And then you get back home and you're like, that just didn't feel good. And so it just becomes very confusing, which turns into feelings of like I'm depressed, or I'm having all this anxiety. And Mandy and I can both say now, looking back on, because for me it was was it July last year for you too, or
Yeah, it
was
was
it
around that June, July.
is
Yeah.
where I just felt super like I was depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, cuz I do remember telling one of my friends at that time, I was like, it's really weird. I was like, because I've experienced depression before, right? I've experienced
Mm-hmm.
very, very deep, dark depression, suicidal depression. I've experienced that
Mm-hmm.
in my life. But what I experienced last July was different. And that's what I was trying to verbalize it. And I didn't know how, because I was like, I feel so depressed, but I don't really have a reason to be depressed, because
Mm-hmm.
every time I was in depressive episodes, there were things going on that led to that I knew that that was why I was so depressed. And
Yeah.
I was like, I don't understand, because I'm like, I feel this depression and it coming on, but I'm like, I don't know what it is.
Right.
And so now looking back, I can say that it's not. I wasn't depressed, right? And that's why I was confused in it all. I was confused in what I was feeling. I was confused on whether I was depressed or not. I was like, what is this pull, this
Yeah.
shift that I feel? And so now looking back is that that's not what it was. It wasn't depression. It was just that I was shifting and I had to come to terms with and accept and trust God in that shift and just lean in and follow through.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it is that leaning into God and leaning into faith and trust in God's purpose and plan for us in our life can feel very lonely. And I
Yeah.
think it's more loneliness than depression is what we
Mm-hmm.
were feeling.
Yeah, it's definitely that perspective that you have because, like you said, I think both of us have experienced dark depression, and like you said, those were situational depression episodes that either one of us had. But like you said, this was such a like a person, not a personality shift, but almost just like the person that I was needed to shift to be who I needed to become for what is planned in my life. And I think it did. It threw me into wanting to know more, wanting to get, into more of my faith and understand, okay, if it's not this, then what is it? And what are you trying to tell me? And I remember I used to sit outside over the summer. I'm a teacher, so we're off during the summer. I used to sit, read my Bible outside, and I would just pray. And I would just be asking, my life is great. I have all these things. I have a beautiful family. I'm healthy.
Mhm.
My family's healthy. But like, why do I feel this need or this push to be a different person or to act a different way? Or why are these things bothering me now? Like never before did any of this other stuff, like you said,
Mhm.
music,
Mhm.
people, places, like why do I feel uneasy? And that's exactly, now looking back almost a year, that that is why, because I we are being shifted
Mhm.
into something that is a bigger purpose for us, in knowing that we needed to prepare. And so I always, I
Mhm.
speak to one of my friends about it. It's that isolation is preparing you for something else, whether it doesn't have to be this big shift, but it can be just a mindset shift for you to say, okay, those things are not serving me anymore and I need to leave them behind in order to be a better
Mhm.
version of myself. And so I think in any point in our life that happens. And now looking back, like I told Pam before we got on the podcast today, that I wish I would have known that years ago. I went through so
Mhm.
much struggle on all of these depression, anxiety battles that really they were just they're just shifts in my life. And I just had to level up or shift. And I didn't understand that that's all that was. It wasn't these big, moments that I had, in my head they were, but really if I would have just grounded myself and really taken that time to open up and say, okay, like what do I need to do? Or I'm here. Like what do I need to do to be used for this way? And so I think that's the main part of this is just, looking at that perspective and making sure that you are looking at it from a brighter side, that it's not a negative thing. It's a growth mindset that you have and to shift into that and not use it as a negative experience.
This episode is brought to you by MBS Fit Co. Excitement is in the air at MBS Fit Co. as we prepare for our upcoming launch. We're introducing a line of premium activewear designed to seamlessly fit into both your workout routines and daily life. Our versatile collection is perfect for your workouts and equally suited for your day-to-day tasks, ensuring you look and feel your best, no matter the occasion. It's not just clothing. It's a commitment to self-care and embracing your best self. Be the first to experience the fusion of style, comfort, and functionality. Subscribe to our VIP list and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok for insider information and exclusive perks available only on our launch day. Dive into the show notes for all the links you need. MBS Fit Co. is more than just activewear. It's a lifestyle. Join our community and be part of our exciting journey from day one to celebrate fitness, self-care, and your hero within. Don't just wear it, live it. All right, now let's dive back into this episode.
I think it is that when we are shifting and when we come to terms with the fact that we are no longer the same person anymore, we go through a period of grief.
Mm.
It's almost like death, right? And
Yeah.
rebirth. And I think we went through a time of grieving the loss of the person that we once were,
Mhm.
or who we thought we wanted or were supposed to be in life. And just like we do with death, right? Is that we
Mhm.
grieve and then we come to terms with and we move on. And I think that's what that is that's truly what we were experiencing last summer. Was it wasn't bouts of depression or anxiety or anything like that. It was just accepting and grieving the loss of this person who we thought that we were.
Mhm.
And then you have to pick up and move on. And you sometimes you lose friends because of it, but there are other friends that will come along that will feel more authentic, and things will just feel better. And that's when things kind of start to look up. You know, it's a whole lot easier to stand alone authentically than to be lonely standing with other people who don't know who you truly are.
Mhm.
And I think that was a big realization for me, was that over many, many years, there were a lot of people that I hung out with that didn't see, they may have thought that they were seeing the real me, but they weren't,
Yeah.
you know,
Well, a lot
because
of
I was
times
hiding that
yeah,
side of
I
me.
was about to say that. You hide it almost because you don't want people
Hmm.
to judge or question, or like you said, you get those comments again. And
Fear of rejection.
yeah, it's just such like a feeling whenever you can just be authentically you and not, I guess at that point you just don't care. Like I feel like at this point I just don't care if people are judging me for the things I do or the way that I think or feel, because it's who I am, it's who I've always been. I just feel like I own it more now, and I'm able to kind of just let that part of me free and not feel like I need that I don't care about the rejection, because the people that love me and are there for me are going to take me as I am, no matter what that looks like. And so I think we get caught up in that whenever we're younger, and just not being able to really, be that whole authentic person that you are, because you feel like you have to fit in certain boxes or be a certain way, or if you're hanging out with certain people, you have to kind of cater to that. But really, you're only
Hmm.
detrimental to yourself because you're not who God intended you to be. You haven't stepped into that purpose to be
Hmm.
fully as you are.
Yeah. It causes a lot of fear and doubt and imposter syndrome as well when you start feeling that shift. It's,
Mm-hmm.
gosh, I don't know. I just know that last summer, I everything just felt very, very heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said too, is just not, I couldn't put my finger on it as to why, because I was like, I have all of these things, I have all this stuff
Mm-hmm.
going for me. At that point for me, I had just moved, right? I
Yeah.
had just moved into this bigger house with a bigger yard, and it was closer, and everything was so great, right? And I was just like, why do you feel like this? And that was when I started praying as well, and was just like,
Mm-hmm.
God, I don't know what it is that you are trying to put on my heart right now, but please, just let me in on it. Like, guide me to it,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't know, and I feel it, and I just, and so, and the closer we talked about this too before we jumped on the podcast, the closer we've gotten to God and the more we've grown spiritually, the more and more we feel that pull
Mm-hmm.
away from the person that we used to be. It's the more you, again, hang out with or do, you start to realize it more, but in a different way, right? It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
book it starts to no longer feel like doubt or imposter syndrome or not understanding what's going on. The closer you get to God, the more you realize what it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that you are, and not just becoming closer to God, but as you just kind of start to realize, the realization starts to come of, I am changing and this is
Mm-hmm.
me and I haven't been authentic to in myself. The more you realize that, the more you start to pick out little things. Because
Mm-hmm.
before we may not have realized it. Before it was just like, oh, well, that's what everybody else is doing. So I'm going to do it too. And then we just go do. Right. And
Mm-hmm.
then it's just whatever, water under the bridge. But then it's that feeling of every time you continue to, and you're like, yeah, this is it. This is the
Mm-hmm.
thing that doesn't feel right,
Yeah. Or you get put in
or that
situations that feel good and you're like, this is where I'm supposed to be,
this
or
feels
this is
really
the
good. Yeah.
situations I'm supposed to put myself in. That whole shift is huge. And I feel like that comes with that realization and trusting that God's going to put you in the places you need to be, around the people that you need to be, and work within your relationships too. Because even as a couple, like us growing in that together, never in a million years did I think that that was going to happen, but it has. And I think it's just because I've entrusted that, the more I pray, the more that I dig deeper in it, that I am going to be guided and I am going to be used in that direction. And it's going to work within all areas of my life, not just me, as my family, career, all of the things that it's going to take you to where you need to be if you're, following that path that is intended to you and you're not fighting it. Because I feel like a lot of times we do that. We will be hesitant, push back. You don't want to let go of some of
Mm-hmm.
these things that you have done for years, but that is the only way you're
Mm-hmm.
going to grow and change, is if you truly just trust in that process and just let go.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's the and don't continue to put yourself in situations that don't feel good, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's being able to identify when there's a certain place that you go again, or music that you listen to, or things that you do, or whatever the case may be. When you leave that situation, or when that song ends, or whenever all these things, and you walk away and you're like, that didn't feel good,
Mm-hmm.
then it's not for you and it's not meant for
Mm-hmm.
you. And so just stop. Or
Yeah.
when you hang out with certain people and do certain things or listen to certain music, and when you do, and you're like, you just feel so refreshed or
Mm-hmm.
rejuvenated, and it just inside you walk away and you're like, man, that just felt really good. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
been like that's the people, that's the places, that's the things that are meant for you and where you
Mm-hmm.
need to continue to go towards. There's been several experiences that I've had over this last year or so where I've literally walked away in tears, because,
Mm-hmm.
and not sad tears, happy tears, because it was people or places or things that I went to do or whatever. And I left there, and it was things that I've never really done before, right? That was never really something that I did, or people that I hung out with, or conversations that I had. And when I
Mm-hmm.
left, I was literally just in tears, because I was like, that felt so good.
Yeah.
And walking away from something and feeling really good, as opposed to walking away and feeling really bad, is a totally different feeling. And the more I
Mm-hmm.
continue to put myself around the right people in the right places at the right time, the
Mm-hmm.
better it feels. And the more it lets me know that I'm on the right path, and that I
Yeah.
am, following God's plan and God's guidance, and to my purpose in life, and what
Mm-hmm.
God put me on this earth to be and to do.
Yeah. I definitely feel like it's just being, it goes all back to being self-aware and just really, digging in and knowing that you are, I guess it's just those reassurances or just those little moments that kind of click in, and you look back and that makes sense, or I can see that now. And it's almost,
Mhm.
you're just more aware of the situation. And so you do pick up on those little hints that, when different things happen and it connects it to something else, that, oh, that's on the right path. And so I was telling Pam before we got on here that that's happened so often lately, that it's just constant reassurance that I'm doing the right thing. I'm in the right place at the right time. And that's what fuels you to continue to just dig deeper and move forward and have a certain mindset shift in order to take you to where you need to be. And that also, I think, comes off on you personally. So like that affects people around you. So I know we've had conversations that especially when you hear of someone's experience that way. And that's why I think this conversation is so important, because some people might be struggling with the depression and the anxiety. And so for us to share and say that it can be used for a greater good, and it is
Mhm.
going to take you, but you have to be willing to open your mind to say, okay, how is this benefiting me? How is this going to move me forward?
Mhm.
And not, I feel like it goes back to that perspective, not shifting into a negative perspective. We have to look at it like, okay, this is hard. This may suck. This is hard. I don't understand any of it right now, but what could this be teaching me? And so that's really what the shift happens, is you start to look at things totally differently than what you have before.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I guess at the end of the day, what Mandy and I really came here to say today is that if you're feeling this, if you're experiencing this feeling that something isn't right, or that you feel like you don't fit in with the people or the places or the things that you've always done, and now it just doesn't feel right anymore, or you're feeling like there's something different or quirky about you and something's changed. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing odd or quirky about you. Everything that you feel is wrong right now is actually what's very, very right. And so to lean in and to trust that guidance and whatever it is that you're feeling, and to continue to grow through it and to push forward and just listen. Because when you do, and you make those changes and follow through with those feelings of change that you're feeling that you need to have, that is when you go from feeling invisible to feeling visible, from disconnected to connected, from doubting yourself to trusting yourself, and craving love from other people and realizing that you are love. So just lean in to the shift if that's what you're feeling, and everything will be okay and it'll all turn around, and then you'll be able to look back and realize that's what that was. So if this episode resonated with you, please share it with a friend. And also, if you have time, leave us a review on our podcast. We would greatly appreciate it. This is just something that we do as a little extra for MBS Fit Co. It's not anything that we're monetizing or making money off of. So just leaving us a review is the biggest thank you that you can do for us. And next week, we'll have another interview with someone else who is super inspirational. And we actually have a little discount thing
Okay.
collaboration that we're doing with her right now as well. So we'll share that next week. And it's a new month. We're in April. We're in a second quarter. So
Mm-hmm.
let's make the best of it. And as always, you are strong, you are capable, and you are worthy. We love you and we're endlessly rooting for you. We'll catch you next time.
Well, that's a wrap on today's episode of Finding My Best Self. It's been real, it's been fun. We hope you found a piece of your story in ours and feel a little more inspired to chase after your best self.
And don't forget to share this episode with someone who needs a little boost today or a good laugh. And make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you never miss an episode.
Nothing says owning your confidence like a new outfit from MBS Fit Co. Check out the show notes for the link to shop our luxury athleisure. Go ahead, girl, treat yourself.
And if you've got a story to share or a topic you're dying for us to cover, drop us a line. Our email is in the show notes. Just reach out and let's keep the conversation going.
So, until next time, keep owning your confidence, embracing the chaos, and remember, the best version of you is just an episode away.
And again, we love you and we're endlessly rooting for you.